In this video, we're going to look at the three main sections of the interface and look at what makes BreakTweaker so unique from its ancestors. Now, when you first load up BreakTweaker, you're going to be prompted with this screen asking you if you want to load a demo, and you can certainly load it and play and get used to the look and feel of it. But for now, we're going to dismiss it, and I'm going to use this Don't Show Again button and hit close. And if you ever do want to get to that again, you can get to it from this options panel and show tutorial pop-up. You can bring it up that way, but for now we're going to disable it. Now, what makes BreakTweaker unique and special and different than your mother and father's drum machines of generations past is not only does it combine under one roof several different drum programming techniques and technologies and paradigms, but it also introduces a new one. Now, we can understand BreakTweaker best by thinking of it in three main sections. First, we have the sequencer, and we see it over here in the main area of the window, and it assembles pattern-based beats. And that alone is nothing we haven't seen before. Step sequencers do that. You enter steps and you create beats. So this assembles pattern-based beats like that. We can have 6 tracks of sounds. We see the 6 tracks here. And you can layer your sounds together and map them out any way you want on these 6 tracks. Now you can store up to 24 different step patterns. And we see the map here of the 24 patterns. And they're launchable and re-triggerable via MIDI. And we can do that by hitting notes on our keyboard, or we can program trigger notes in our DAW. And you can, on the fly, switch between the patterns. And each track can have a unique tempo and length. And this already is something new and interesting and powerful. So we can have different lengths, different number of steps for each of the tracks, and they can play back at different speeds. Now, the second area of BreakTweaker is the sound generator area. And we get to that for each of these 6 tracks by clicking on these icons. And right now it's empty. I'm going to load in a preset just so we can see what a typical generator setup might look like. So here we've got something loaded in with a couple of presets on a few parts here. And if I click this button, I'm going to view the generator area. Now, this is more than just a drum synthesis module. It defines the sound for each sequencer track. And each track can have 3 separate generators. And we see here it's showing one with this arrow here. And that's the second generator, and that's the third one. So there's only one generator loaded in for this track. But this is the generator section. And what's great about it in terms of combining previous technologies is that it can act as a kind of morphing wavetable synthesis type of drum synth that we've seen in the past. But it's also a one-shot sample loading sample player. So we can load in samples and play them, or we can use synthesis. And we're going to explore all this in detail. And pertaining to the synthesis part, although it's applicable to the samples as well, we have 4 LFOs. And they each have unique shapes that can be morphed between. And we have 4 envelopes over here. We can switch between the LFOs and envelopes there, and there's all kinds of unique shapes. And we have filters and distortions and mix controls, and multiply this times 3, and you have that per track, so you can get really thick, multi-textured, multi-layered sounds. Not only that, but each generator has 2 oscillators. We'll go deep into that later in the series. Now, the third part is the micro-edit engine, and this is completely new, something that has never existed before. We think of these steps as being individual notes, but each step can be broken down in the micro-edit section over here and chopped up and stretched. And I'll give you an example. By clicking on it, any highlighted step will display the parameters down here. Let's listen to this pattern. So these are bass drum hits. We see it's called kick, and we can stretch the length. Unlike other drum sequencers, length does matter here. This isn't just a one-shot. The note can have length. Let's listen to it now. So it doesn't sound any different, but we can chop up and micro-edit this longer gesture. And there's all kinds of ways of chopping and stretching. And we're going to get into all that. It's a ball you can tweak away, and that's why it's called BreakTweakers, and come up with really great, serendipitous, great sounds. But in this series, what I want to do is, rather than just tweaking and showing you how cool it is, I want to get into the nuts and bolts and look at and reveal all the parameters and functions of all the knobs and controls. So that's a little introduction and overview to BreakTweaker. Again, we have the sequencer over here where we can assemble 24 patterns. We have the generators, where we can sculpt sounds with 3 generators per sound, and each one has 2 oscillators and filters and envelopes and different processing. And there's synthesis parameters as well as one-shot sample playback functionality. And then we have the micro edit engine over here that divides a single step into thousands of slices, and they can be contoured and shaped, and you can create harmonic, pitched, and rhythmic effects that blur the lines between pitch and rhythm. So that's what makes BreakTweaker so unique. It's the marriage of all the previously separate types of interface components all under one roof. We have the step sequencer, we have drum synthesis, we have sample playback, and all new micro editing of the individual steps. See you for more in the next video, and we'll get started using BreakTweaker.